Hey, welcome into the Husker247 Daily here for Friday. Mike Schaefer joined by Brian Christopherson as we get you prepared for the weekend ahead. We're actually going to do things a little bit differently here. We're going to take a look at the conference at large every week on Husker247.com. Brian Christopherson does rankings of the Big Ten Conference. I think it'd be one, there's 18 teams. Two, I think it's kind of a difficult to a lot of these teams seem jumbled in the middle to me, Brian. I'm
Yeah.
curious how you kind of pulled out some of these teams, and how do you sort of break it up if you assign tiers to it? Like who's your top tier of Big Ten football? Is it Ohio State then everybody else? Or do you kind of have some teams grouped up there at the top?
I think right now you would say the top tier, it is probably Ohio State and with a little gap between the others, but close behind them are Oregon and Indiana, and they'll sort it out as we'll get to here. But those top three right now, then I think you probably have at this moment Michigan and Illinois sort of in that next line, and then it's sort of jumbled, like you say. Where I always talk about the upper middle, Schaefer, like Nebraska
Mm-hmm.
getting the upper middle, and that I think I say that because I do the rankings, and so I think about it like in that context of like Nebraska to me in the past couple of years has sort of been stuck around that like 10 to 12 area sometimes, or 9 to 12 area. And it would be huge if this year even they can take that step where you feel like they're in the 5 to 7 range or something like
Yeah.
that. So basically, I have USC 6, Washington 7, Nebraska 8, Iowa 9, Penn State 10, which is almost favorable for Penn State after their loss, and then Maryland and Michigan State. So it is a
That's your
fine
top
line.
12 right there,
Yeah,
then. Yeah.
it's a fine line. So I mean, if Nebraska doesn't play up to par on Saturday and Maryland beats them, Nebraska would be like 13th in these things a week from now. You know, that's like how close or how much it can shift week to week. And then at the bottom, you get weird stuff like UCLA looked. I mean, they did look really good in that game against Penn State. It wasn't just Penn State bad; they looked good on offense. So suddenly,
Mm-hmm.
so what do you do with them? Even though they were a disaster, I moved them up a couple spots, but they also lost to Northwestern the week before. So you got to factor stuff like that in. So that's kind of how I think about it. But um, as a whole, Nebraska over the next 2 weeks could do itself a solid by winning these games on the road. It would obviously already put them bowl eligible, and then that stupid conversation. We don't get into that again. But also, I think it would sort of solidify, hey, Nebraska is one of the top 7 or 8 teams at least in this league, and then you go from there and try to move up even.
Yeah. Who do you got at DFL right now? Is it Wisconsin? And if it's not Wisconsin, why isn't it Wisconsin?
Wisconsin, I had 17. I mean, I just think that they've been an absolute mess. They did play respectable against Michigan by the score, but if you look at the yardage, they still got outgained by like 220 yards or something in that one. So obviously, that's a big one for them against Iowa this weekend up in Madison, and maybe a last stand kind of game really for them, Schaefer. Like they probably feel the heat, and Fickle feels the heat to a point where it's like if they don't win this one and you look at their schedule going forward, there's not a lot of optimism you can see for W's anywhere. So maybe they can right the ship in this one, and that would be the type of game, if you wanted one example of a game that if people do rankings like that can flip everything and make it a mess and muddled. It's like if Wisconsin beats Iowa this week or something like that.
Yeah. Well, that is definitely one of the games we're keeping an eye on here as we look at Big Ten slate here for what are we, week 7 now? We're already into week 7. This is
Yeah.
the halfway point of the 14-week schedule for college football. It's crazy that we're already here. It just feels like you guys left to go down to Kansas City, and we're sitting in I-29 traffic just the other day. So wild that we're at that point. All right, things start on Friday. Rutgers, Washington. You have Washington at number 7. They needed a jump start in the fourth quarter against Maryland, but they got there. They did it going out onto the road. That's tough to go west to. It's tough to go from out west to the east, and Nebraska's going to have to go from the Midwest to the east. But now Rutgers, who has had several close losses, just coming off a bye, are now going out to Washington. What do you make of this one on Friday night?
Yeah, I feel like Rutgers really blew its opportunities like early in its conference slate. Like they had Iowa on the ropes and they let that one go at home. I'm trying to think of who they lost to the previous game, but
They lost to Minnesota, and
yeah.
they were up there too, and they couldn't close that out.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at their schedule, and another example of a team where I kind of had high hopes for them is like being a 6-7 win type of team. And this is the kind of game like they're going to need to flip a game maybe to be bowl eligible by the end of it.
You're going to have to flip 2 games probably, because this is what it looks for them. You got Washington, then Oregon, then Purdue. So if you get a win against Purdue, you're at 4 wins. But then it's Illinois, Maryland, Ohio State, Penn State. So they're going to have to upset somebody, whether it's, Washington, and that's assuming if they can get a win against Maryland and Purdue, which isn't a given either. So things are looking tough for Greg Schiano.
I like Washington in that game. They're back at home. They probably got away with one at Maryland last week, and there's maybe some momentum off of that. I don't know quite what to make of them. Like you could say Nebraska's ahead of them right now. That's where these next couple of weeks are, I think, going to be pretty important in sort of like giving clarity to actually who's like 5 through 7, because right now it could be one of like 7 or 8 teams.
11 a.m. I'm assuming the big noon in Champaign. You get Ohio State versus number 1 Ohio State, number 17 Illinois. Illinois got drilled by Indiana, and then they came back and they beat USC. I don't know what to make of it. They haven't had their bye yet. They're playing their 7th game of the season in week 7 here. And it's an Ohio State team that, frankly, like they've kind of just overwhelmed everybody they played. But their best win is a 24-6 game against Washington. Like, I mean, they beat Texas too, but frankly, I don't know how brag-worthy that Texas win is going to be by the end of the year if they don't pull something out in SEC play. So kind of an interesting Ohio State start where they're clearly the number 1 team in the country. And yet at the same time, I don't know how prepped they're going to be, because it just feels like nobody on their schedule is as good as it looked like at one point in time.
Yeah, I think the initial spread I saw, and maybe it's changed, was like 14.5 for Ohio State on this one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like Illinois on the cover there. Like they're
just been like 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think they're going to make the Buckeyes earn it. I don't think Illinois is going to win outright or anything, but I suspect that's going to be like a 10 to 14 point game, and one you're kind of like keeping an eye on in the second half.
Yeah. Here's a fun one. UCLA, after their big win, takes on Michigan State, who needs a win after the losses to USC and to Nebraska. 11 a.m. BTN.
I'm strangely interested in this game. It's like,
I'm gonna have this one on.
Maybe it's because Nebraska just played Michigan State, so there's that part of it where you want to see, okay, what do they do out of that? I think Michigan State was really frustrated with itself at the end of that game. You saw Aiden Childs and his receiver sort of getting into it on the sideline. That happens in the heat of the battle. But how do they respond? And like I said, UCLA, I wonder if they're going to pick it up a notch now. And by the time Nebraska gets there, maybe that's going to be a tougher game. But this will be the sort of week where we get some evidence if that's a thing, or if it was just like a 1 year or a 1 week little story that was fun for young Neuheisel.
Yeah, absolutely. You got Indiana, Oregon, 2 coaches that love to talk, and now they get to play each other here. Number 7 Indiana, number 3 Oregon, out at Autzen. 2:30 kick on CBS. This is another fun game.
What's your pick here?
I think Indiana's going to do it. I've just decided to stop doubting everything that they've done at this point and just accept that, they've got something built there. I thought Oregon, in a way, were sort of fortunate to get out of Happy Valley with a win. And Indiana, they didn't play great against Iowa, but I don't know, there's just something about it. Like, it's also just a year. I don't know that I think any of these teams are that good, so it clouds a little bit of my perception of it. I'm going to go ahead and call an upset of Oregon by Indiana, and it's going to be a massive story in college football, because at this point, should they do that, there can no longer be any question whether Indiana belongs in the conversation or not.
Yeah, I mean, even if they just like go toe to toe and lose by like 3 or 4.
They lose by one score. You're right there.
You got to give them their due for doing that, because that's going to be a hostile crowd and it'll be loud. I'll take the Ducks because of the home field, only because of the home field. I'm kind of like you. I'm not as sold on them being great at this point. I think they
were better last year.
Yeah, I think they're really solid, but like the win over Oklahoma State, like was a everyone looked at that score and they're like, wow. Then a couple weeks later, you're like, okay, big deal. And you're right. I think they kind of got away with the Penn State game, and Penn State, frankly, even though it's hard to win there at night, has not been anything to write home about, obviously.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Penn State, they get Northwestern in a game they absolutely have to have. I would anticipate this being a bad spot for Northwestern to be in, because you're getting an angry Penn State team at home, and they're going to put up points. I think Northwestern's going to get beat up a little bit in this one.
Yeah, they got the worst possible draw to get Penn State of the whole season, basically. And they also, Penn State, if you didn't see it, painted their end zones like mid-90s style. Like, if you look at it, I don't know if they put the yellow goal line. Remember, they used to have a yellow stripe on the goal line. But they're going to roll, I think.
You mentioned Iowa, Wisconsin. I think Iowa wins that one. I don't know that Wisconsin keeps it close. Their quarterback situation's a mess. Their offense is a mess. Iowa's defense is not as good as it's been, but I think it's fine there. I think Iowa wins. That's at 6:00 FS1.
Yeah, I'll take Iowa too, but with their quarterback situation's worth watching. Just how Gronowski looks coming. They've sort of played it close to the vest with 3 different guys who could play in that game last I heard. So we'll see what the Hawkeyes do at that position. Obviously, Gronowski takes a lot of hits, so that's something to watch and keep in mind. But as you work your way toward Black Friday.
2 of the best skill position players Nebraska is going to see on its schedule all year, Michigan, USC, and Justice Haynes and Mekhi Lemon on opposite sides here. Each could have long touchdowns. Each could have dynamic days. I don't know what to make of this game.
Yeah.
I think I'm leaning Michigan here, because I don't know that USC is as good as I thought that they were going to be. But this one's tough. I'm going Wolverines on the road. I don't feel great about it, but that's my pick as of now.
I am too, but I'm just like you. Like this is going to be a 3-point game either way, I feel like. It brings me old Rose Bowl vibes of like when I was 9 years old. So that it's kind of cool in that regard. I wish the late Keith Jackson were around. He's like meant to call this game.
I wish this started later. I kind of want this to start at like 8:30. The kid's down to sleep. I can.
That would be good.
Just fully put this game on. You'd be mostly done with what you have to do, and so you could go back to the hotel and watch this game out there. And I assume you're staying in DC. Maybe you're in Baltimore. I don't know where you're at.
I'm in Baltimore, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That'd be a nice like 8:30, 9 p.m. start, no doubt.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the game that I pay the most attention to.
No, you saved the best for last, actually, on our list.
We get Purdue, Minnesota. Nebraska doesn't play Purdue this year. I have not watched much Purdue. They haven't looked good from what I understand, but it was a tough situation for Barry Odom. And then Minnesota, this is a game that they play before Nebraska comes to town, so I will kind of have an eye on it to see what they are. I think Drake Lindsey's a pretty good quarterback. They're 3-2, 1-1, and this game could give them a little momentum going into that Nebraska game if they're able to get a win here at home.
Yeah, I would think Minnesota wins, and I think it's like a 7.5 spread or something. I'll take them to cover even. But Purdue, I like their coach. I'll say that. Like, I like Odom with that job and what he's going to try to do. And they actually played Illinois tough last week. They were in it. They lost by I think 16. So I like what he's building. But give me the Gophers heading into that Friday game, and ideally Nebraska has a win too to really set up something there.
Yeah, well, this is a good Big Ten slate. So fun games for us to kind of keep an eye on. It'll be interesting to see how your rankings are impacted next week and if we have any big upsets. So we'll see how all of that goes this weekend, and we'll have all of that coverage as always at Husker247.com. So for Brian Christopherson, I'm Mike Schaefer. Enjoy your upcoming weekend. Enjoy the Nebraska-Maryland game. We'll have all the coverage you need to see once again at Husker247.com.